Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of Million Dollar Mastermind. I am here with Scott Ellyson. He's co-founder, CEO of East West Manufacturing. Annual revenues of the company are, let's see, I don't even have those figures. I know that
we're closing in on $500 million.
Oh, billion. Okay. I've got a B instead of an M there. So closing in on $500 million.
Yeah.
And global manufacturing, China, Vietnam, India, and
Costa Rica, Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
And so do a lot of traveling in normal times?
Yeah, my 100th trip to China was back in 2011, and I stopped counting. But we've got. I like to visit our sites as much as I can, and we've got 8 fully owned factories across the globe and a whole bunch of offices. And, I took a little break from COVID. Haven't been outside the country. Actually, I did do a couple trips to Canada, but things are starting to pick back up, and I'm starting to get back on the road. Which is what I love to do.
You know, they used to say the footprints of management were the greatest fertilizers for business, but I think that changed somewhat here in the last year, or somehow businesses have been able to keep going, but special challenges when your business is scattered around the globe. How have you guys, how have you responded that might have been unique?
Might have been unique. I mean, I think we were fortunate that the vast majority, of the products we manufacture are essential for business, and so we had to keep the plants running, keep the supply chains moving. I think our teams just did a great job of making sure the facilities were safe and our employees felt safe. And I think we did a good job keeping our culture and our collaboration going as best as we could through all this. And I think if anything's unique is, we were able to continue to grow the company at a healthy clip through COVID. Our 5-year growth rate is still over 40% a year. And we're going to do it again this year. So, and we completed 7 acquisitions in the last 4 years, and we're working hard to integrate those businesses and get on the same page as far as culture and purpose. And we've been able to do a great job through that as well through the COVID.
And now let's talk about scale. How many? Let's run through those numbers again. Countries, factories, the overview, employees, moving parts in this thing. I don't want to get you depressed about what you got to keep up with, but it would help to get an overview of it.
Yeah, we're right around 3,000 employees globally. We've got, professional staff has to be, I don't have a recent number, but it's, probably 500 or so. And then salaried staff. And then engineers, 125 engineers in the company. We've got 8 facilities, fully owned facilities, and we have operations in 14 different locations. I don't know how many countries that is anymore. Probably 7 or 8 countries.
The moving parts, people would look at product lines. How many product lines do you think of? Do you break your things up like that, or?
I don't. I mean, I know we've got north of 400 customers, and we focus on products that we think make the world a better place and improve our lives. And we've got several hundred products that would fit that definition. And for us, that's things that make the world smarter, safer, healthier, and cleaner or greener. So we take on energy saving products and technology products. Medical is a big category for us. We were doing a lot around COVID last year with ventilators and respirators, oxygen dispensers. But our core products are we do a lot in air conditioning, a lot in robotics, and then we've gotten into health and fitness. So we're making some pretty high end exercise equipment for virtual training in your basement, things like that.
And would we know any of those brands?
You would.
Okay. And I'm
You definitely would.
okay. And so the thing is you go through it like, let's just look at the last year. How do you talked about not only surviving, but growing during that time. And people will look at a position that you're in and say, Lord, how would you do it? But I'm guessing you basically do it one day at a time, one issue at a time, and try and work through things so they don't come up again, and use it to improve. How do you describe that process?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the kind of the culture of the business. One of the things, there's several fundamentals, I guess, that we've tried to incorporate into the business from the day I started the business 20 years ago, which is 5 people. It's thinking about, we wanted to create an environment where it's safe to make to take chances and to make mistakes, but also a company where when mistakes are made, those are seen as opportunities for us to get better and stronger and really differentiate ourselves from the competition. And so there aren't a lot of companies that I've been in and where that's the case. But maybe if I'm an entrepreneur, I want everybody else here thinking also like they're an entrepreneur and the owner in the business, and thinking about how we can become a better company all the time.
And how does that play out in real life? How you empower your people and that type of thing?
So the big things you're looking for is alignment, across the organization. Make sure that expectations, there's a whole process. You got to create, well, where are we all headed? What are we trying to accomplish? And then let's we get that really clearly defined. What does our 10-year vision look like? What does our 3-year vision look like? What are we going to look like in 3 years? And then, and that's across all kinds of functional areas. Is it, what's our revenue going to be? What's our margin going to be? What's our customer profile going to be? What's our infrastructure going to be to support that? What kind of company are we going to be to come to work for? And then let's break that down even further into, well, what are we going to get done this year to make that happen, and who's going to be accountable for each of those things, and what tools do they need to make that happen, and then once that's done, and we do this every year, in terms of creating the strategy for the year, and defining all we call them rocks. A lot of this came out of the book Traction. It's called an EOS system, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so that gets defined, and then each of those activities gets assigned to a person, and they're held accountable to it. It goes into their what we call their quarterly performance report, and they get to report on the status of those key initiatives every quarter to the whole company, and then they meet with their managers, on a regular basis. But that everybody gets reviewed quarterly, where those initiatives get discussed and prioritized.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of information online, but there aren't a lot of people who have actually done something. In my case, I've actually built a successful business that's accrued over $5 billion in assets under management and has done well even during trying times. Now, if you want to know exactly how I've done this, go to whiteelmwinning.com/webinar now. I've compressed a decade of learning into 5 short weeks just for those of you who want to give yourself an incredible advantage and are tired of waiting and watching others move up.
How did you come to get a clear idea of the culture you wanted to create 20 years ago? That had to somehow happen before you started this thing. You had to be going through some experiences that got you thinking about the right way to build a major global corporation, what it turned into, to get the fundamentals right.
Yeah, I mean,
So
part of it, seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I was fortunate enough. My first job out of college, I worked for a company that was very entrepreneurial. They had invented disposable, minimally invasive surgical instruments down in Miami, and really fast growing company. They licensed that technology to Ethicon and Boston Scientific, and they started just receiving huge volumes of orders quite quickly. I was in charge of manufacturing for their biggest product line, which is their biopsy forceps line. So that gave me an exposure to really kind of and they were in a high tech company, and they were kind of a cool culture for that period of time. And so I left there to become a global strategy consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I was spent 100% of my time traveling and meeting with big companies. And
how did you qualify? How did you qualify for that job?
so they,
What led you to that job?
yeah, so they were. This is back when supply chain was a new term back in the early '90s, and they were looking for, first of all, folks that could travel a lot, but also engineers with a lot of them with MBAs that could understand both the business and I think I was always I've always been analytical, implementer and change manager, and and trying to help incentivize and encourage folks to lead teams and to get things done. And so when they hired me on to on their supply chain group, my job was to help companies optimize their supply chains, to think about, well, where is the best place to manufacture this product? Where's the best place to have a distribution center? How best to set up our distribution centers, across the country. And often in my role in that was to really be on the ground, helping the leaders of those companies think about how to develop the plans and implement them. And so that was really incredible experience at a young age. But I also got to see a variety of different cultures in businesses. And to be honest, I mean, a lot of times I thought, geez, if these guys can make money and be successful, I've got a chance at doing this myself. I mean, I learned a lot about what not to do, as well as what works. And so that was a great experience because I got to be in and out of a lot of companies over a very short period of time.
Well, when you get into companies as an outsider, a lot of times you're not that welcome. But the big guys who are making the decisions, they've got to welcome you because they authorize you to come in. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and they pay as consultants for PwC. They pay you a lot of money to
yeah,
get things done. It's high pressure.
yeah. And, but I guess once you get in the door, you're talking to the people who work for these people in the corporate, the decision making level. Yeah. And I guess you find out, the CEO is has a vision of how things work, kind of like a general, and a lot of pontification. In our business, we built organizations, and it was people are always wanting to hear from the most successful, fastest growing current leader. And you'd bring them in and they would talk, well, in our organization, we do things this way. And I always got a big laugh out of that because I had one of the biggest organizations and I knew nobody did anything the way I told them how to do it. It'd be like in kindergarten level, yes, they do it the way you're telling them. But once they get on their own, they've got the fundamentals down. If you give them the freedom and you give them the opportunity, they're going to develop their own stuff, and you might think they're doing things the way the presentations, the way you told them and all of that, but they're going to be evolving constantly.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I learned early on that if you treat folks, employees like adults, they're going to act like adults. If you're going to treat them like micromanage them and treat them like adolescents, they're going to act like adolescents. And so, giving folks the freedom to think and create and improve that you want to leverage that brain power across the organization. And so early on, back to when I was working for that medical device company down in Miami, my first responsibility with them was to go out on the floor and look at the assembly lines and figure out ways, because we were growing so fast, to see that ways that we could drive efficiency across the production line. And so the first thing I did is I sat down, and the assembly line would have, I don't know, 20 or 25 stations on it. And so I went to each station, starting at the beginning, and said, "Hey, I want to understand what you're doing. Show me your job, what it is, and teach me how to do it. I want to be able to do it myself." And so I'd spend, an hour or two learning what they're doing, and then typically I would say, "Well, what do you have any ideas on what we could do to make your job easier, to make it faster, more efficient? You know, any wasted activities you're doing that we could work on." And it was amazing how much, once they knew I wasn't threatening to them, that I was really there to help, how many ideas that they were just started free flowing. And I'd work my way down the line, and inevitably I'd hear somebody say, "Well, every 20 minutes I got to get up, I got to walk to the other side of the room, I got to get this part and bring it back to the line, and that's really inconvenient." And I would say something like, "Well, what if we just got that and moved it right next to you, so you didn't have to get up all the time?" And they'd look at me out of amazement, like, "What do you mean you can do that?" And I'd be
Right.
like, "Well, yeah, we can do that." And so next thing I knew, that everybody was engaged on the line to figure out, well, how can we improve together and share ideas and get stronger. But and it wasn't mine. All I did in that was I was just an enabler. And it was all the brain power on the line of the folks that were doing it day in and day out that was really where the power was. And so I learned that early on, that if I can create that in an organization where everybody felt like they were free to share ideas and how we could make our organization better. And not only that they understand how they could succeed, how that success also translated down to them, how they could be part of that. I thought would be hugely powerful. And so that's always what I've tried to create in East West. We're a transparent company. We share our performance across the organization. Everybody knows how we're doing, how they're doing, and how they benefit from the success of the company, and also what they need to be doing if they want to grow in the organization, what things they need to be working on, and what that path could look like.
If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementwinning.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.